Welcome back to the final edition of Verizon Vikings Training Camp Live. I'm your host, Gabe Henderson. Vikings team reporter Eric Smith will join me shortly to break down the final practice of training camp today. But later in the show, we dive a little deeper into the D-line position battle. We also give you guys the top 5 plays from training camp this year. But first, to start the show, we are now joined by the newest addition to the Minnesota Vikings family, defensive end Yannick Ngakoue. Yannick, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. How you feeling?
I'm good, man. No complaints.
Good.
Talk about your last 72 to 96 hours of, that transition of becoming a Minnesota Viking.
These last 72 hours has been crazy for me, just from moving and packing everything up to making sure my puppy is in proper training, getting them right, and also on top of that, learning the playbook. In a week from now, we'll be suiting up to go against the Green Bay. So it's just a lot, but as a professional athlete and as just a true pro, you should be able to manage all those things, and that's what I'm trying to do right now. And I'm just excited. I'm excited to get everything started.
Later in the show, we'll talk about the defensive side of the ball, the logistics of football. But first, who is Yannick Ngakoue, the person?
Yannick Ngakoue, the person, he's just a fun, quality guy that's always happy. But I'm happy, but more so serious. Serious, not a mean guy, but just focus on my work. I want to be the best I can be. I want to have respect in this league, so that's why I carry myself a certain way. And a guy that has true work ethic. I'm always going to work hard, always going to push my teammates, and that's the type of guy I am. What motivates you? What motivates me right now, one of my dreams and aspirations was to make sure that my mom was, fine and making sure she was financially secure, but that's over with now. So the only thing on my mind is getting a gold jacket and getting rings, and trying to get a ring this year for this organization and bringing it back home to Minnesota.
And that process starts today and it keeps going from here on out. And just speaking of Minnesota, you've been here before. Of course, the joint practices in 2018. You had a share of what Minnesota is like, but talk about that experience. Was there anything that stood out about this team? Did you have any common knowledge of who the Minnesota Vikings were, during that time?
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to take it all the way back to the defensive line greats, and it's kind of weird how Minnesota came and acquired me during the off season. I love Chris Doman's game. I love John Randall's game. Those are guys that I studied and watched, and the way that they brought their pads each and every Sunday is kind of the same way I want to do it. And I know that was a different era back then, but just the tradition that they have here is outstanding.
You had your first practice yesterday, and being that this is a condensed training camp, and I know you've been staying in shape outside of being in Jacksonville the past few years and even this offseason, but how would you assess where you are physically right now heading into week 1?
Well, I'm definitely excited because it was my first time in pads since last season. It was a full padded practice, and for me not to be gasping and weeping for air, it shows that I've been doing what I have to do. Waiting until I got this phone call to get this trade, so I'm excited about that. Just need a couple more days to knock the rust off to get my rhythm back, and then after that we should be full speed.
The other part of being a pro is the mental aspect. So mentally, what's been some things that you've had to adjust to get prepared for next week?
Just getting acclimated, a different terminology, with the playbook, learning those new calls. It's not the same calls that I've been used to for 4 years in Jacksonville. This is a new place, so getting with Coach Patterson every day, trying to, harp those things and beat it into my brain so it becomes secondhand nature when I hear the calls on the field.
You talked about Coach Patterson, phenomenal defensive mind, but more importantly, a phenomenal human being. What are you most looking forward to, learning from him this upcoming season?
I just want to learn different things. Everybody knows I can do a cross chop, I can get the ball out, I can get sacks, but at the same time, let's make the game a complete game. Keep knocking guys back even more versus the run. Getting more tackles for losses. I showed that I could play the run last year, but let's do it again. Let's do it each and every year. And I know Coach Patterson will raise me to the level I can be.
We know the story, how he developed Danielle Hunter. You get an opportunity to play with a guy like that. We all know his stats, youngest guy to 50 sacks. But for you, being on the opposite side and just playing alongside him, how excited are you to, have that 1-2 dynamic duo or just be able to learn from him?
I'm excited. I feel like we both complement each other. He's I feel like he's more of a power guy, and he can get you with speed. And I know I'm a speed guy, and I can get you with power when you're not thinking about it. So we can complement each other a lot and give each other tips on how we rush.
Of course, Green Bay Packers, Minnesota Vikings, the rivalry. You know that's a big thing here. I don't know if you like fully understand it, but what do you know about that rivalry? And like, is there something that's on your shoulder right now playing against the Green Bay Packers?
Yeah, actually the Packers was my first game ever in this league in 2016, and I had a bad taste in my mouth how we lost that game. So I just want to show those guys what I can do and just run it back and get this W for Minnesota.
Couple more questions. Subjectively, you want to be a better teammate. You want to be able to learn and grow. But objectively, as far as numbers for your goals, are there numbers attached to your goals yet? As far as like, hey, I want to have this amount of sacks or this amount of TFLs or forced fumbles?
Well, the sacks will come. You just got to beat the man in front of you. A great wise man told me that. Calais Campbell told me, don't ever worry about the numbers or the stats. Just worry about beating that man in front of you. And when you beat that man in front of you, you look up at the end of the year and you see what you have.
Of course, everybody's talking about the stats, the 37.5 sacks. We just, it's not all about the stats. But I think one thing, if we're talking numbers, the 14 forced fumbles, like, you don't see that every day. So what goes into that? Is that something that you're cognizant of when you are sacking the quarterback? Hey, I want to get the ball out and just make a big play.
Absolutely. Getting the sack is cool, but you give the offense that you're going against another opportunity to drive the ball down the field. But when you get the ball out, you give your own offense the opportunity to score, and I feel like that's special. The greats, those guys, they give their offense opportunities to be able to score again.
Lastly, what can Minnesota Vikings fans expect from you this upcoming season?
Well, they can expect a hard, determined worker from number 91. Also a guy that will definitely get the ball out even more here and make more plays and just be an all-around team guy. And also, I'm just trying to give back to this community as well. There's a lot of kids that come from similar backgrounds I come from, and I'm just trying to reach out to those guys and those kids and make sure that I can do the best thing I can do for them.
Man, looking forward to it, man. Best of luck.
Appreciate you, big dog.
Vikings team reporter Eric Smith now joins the show, but before we get to him, earlier today, the head coach, Mike Zimmer, addressed the media to discuss roster cut day tomorrow, as well as the current state of the Vikings heading into week 1.
Mike, before training camp started, we quizzed you about what you thought the process would be like of evaluating younger players and making cuts like you're going to have to make here. So what has it been like, and how tough is it to make those decisions without preseason games?
It's only difficult because you can't judge them against other people, and they get to know the guys that they're going against, I guess, would be the big reason. You try to put them in as many game situations as you can so you can kind of see how they think and how they react and when coaches aren't on the field. I think you get a feel for the player. You just, some players just emerge in the games more so than practice.
Mike, the ability to keep 16 on the practice squad, does that alleviate any of the stress or any difficulty, and that you'll be able to at least keep more of these guys in some capacity?
Well, I think that helps. I think it gives some players an opportunity to improve. I think it gives them an opportunity to continue to get coached and worked on some of the fundamentals and techniques so that they can get to a point where they can help us.
The 53-man roster is due tomorrow by 3 p.m. Central Time for all 32 teams. Eric, when you hear these comments from Mike Zimmer today, what were your thoughts?
Camp's over. Camp's over. It's been a long 3 weeks, and the Vikings have had plenty of time to evaluate their players. I know it's been a weird year, and there's no preseason games, but as Coach Zimmer mentioned, he wanted to get his team in as many game-like situations as possible, and he did. The Vikings were in U.S. Bank Stadium doing a scrimmage. They did a bunch of fourth quarters situations in practice. There was a game-like situation at the end of every practice that we saw. So the Vikings had ample time to evaluate their players, and we'll find out. Like Gabe said, tomorrow's cut-down day. We'll find out about the practice squad on Sunday, and then here we are for week 1.
Here we are for week 1, and here we are moving on to the defensive line position breakdown. You got a lot of solid defensive linemen in this young defensive lineman group. But when you look at this list, you got your Daniil Hunters, your Yannick Ngakoue's, you have Jaleel Johnson, Armand Watts. When you look at this group, Shamar Stephen, Ifeadi Odenigbo, so many names, what do you see from this group?
Yeah, I'll start with the starting group there. You know, we have 4 starters that are listed, and Ifeadi is on there. You know, when everyone's healthy and everyone's on the field, the hope is that Daniil and Yannick form the best, you know, defensive end combo in the league. Mm-hmm. But Ifeadi is on there because, you know, with Daniil's situation and then Yannick getting adjusted to the team, there's a chance that Ifeadi could play big minutes early on. We'll have to see how that shakes out. But the potential is there for Hunter and Ngakoue to be, without a doubt, the league's top defensive end duo. A name that I like, you see him on the screen there, is Shamar Stephen. And he's a guy, he's not going to get a lot of awards. He's not going to get a lot of big numbers. Mm-hmm. But if you ask Eric Kendricks why he's been able to lead the team in tackles for the last 5 seasons, he'll easily say Shamar Stephen. And, you know, he takes up blockers, he eats up offensive linemen, and that allows Kendricks to get to the running back, to get to the ball in general. Those are the starting group as of now. That 3 technique spot, we'll kind of dive into that. But, you know, the Vikings have a good group of defensive linemen up front.
Speaking of that defensive tackle, 3 technique spots, you have 2 guys right there, Jaleel Johnson and Armand Watts. My take from those 2 guys is they have been so coachable throughout training camp. You see those guys learning from Andre Patterson. They've accepted the responsibility of filling that hole of what Linval Joseph left this past season. And having those guys, seeing those guys grow throughout training camp has been really fun to see. When you look at those 2 guys, what do you see, Eric?
I see almost like a 2-man rotation a little bit of how they're going to fill that role. Mm-hmm. So Shamar has kind of moved over into the nose tackle spot, which we thought was going to be Michael Pierce, obviously, when Linval left in free agency. You know, so it was going to be Linval, it was going to be Michael Pierce, and then it was going to be now it's Shamar playing nose. So Jaleel and Armand are almost like a 2-man team at that 3 technique spot as we kind of start the season here, and both guys offer value. Both guys can rush the passer, but they can also stop the run. So we'll see how it plays out. You know, who gets, you know, the start on Sunday, or, you know, who gets playing time. But both guys, I think, are going to be pivotal this season, and both guys are going to play big roles at 3 technique.
You named 3 possible defensive end starters this year, but behind those 3 guys, your Yannick Ngakoue's, Ifeadi, and Daniil, you have a lot of depth with a guy like DJ Wonnum. When you see a guy like him and other guys behind him, how do you see that playing out?
I see the depth as being really strong, and that's no surprise, given that Andre Patterson loves guys who can rush the passer. He said it when we acquired Yannick, that you can never have enough pass rushers. And DJ Wonnum has shown a lot of promise in camp. You know, he drew comparisons to Daniil for his body frame coming into, you know, right after the draft. And he's definitely shown flashes of what he can do. You see Ifeadi there on the screen. You know, he's going to get a good amount of playing time. Mm-hmm. You know, even if he doesn't end up being a full-time starter this year, when it's 3rd down and long and the opposing team's going to throw the ball, Ifeadi is going to be in there on the interior rushing the passer. That was the role he had in 2019, and he had 7 sacks. He had a great season. The guy who could be next to Ifeadi on that 3rd down situation is Hercules Mataafa, and he's gained some weight from last year. He played in a couple games in 2019, but he's gained some weight, and he's also shown flashes and has looked really good in camp. So the whole Vikings line throughout has depth, they have talent, and we'll see how they do for week 1.
Depth, talent is key heading into week 1 against the Green Bay Packers. And moving on to our camp standouts, we can't end the show without talking about camp standouts. I'll let you start.
I'm going to go with Brian O'Neill, and that's probably not a huge surprise because he had such a good season in 2019, but he's looked great, and that's what the Vikings kind of expected out of him going into 2020. You know, Gary Kubiak said a few weeks ago that he could just tell when Brian walked into the building at the start of camp that he was just more confident. Mm-hmm. And we all saw Brian take a jump from year 1 to year 2. You know, at the end of last year, you know, Pro Football Focus didn't they credited him with not allowing a sack for the entire season. So he had a great season. But if he can take another similar jump and keep improving his game, I don't have any doubt that Brian will be recognized as one of the top right tackles in the game. Mm-hmm. If not one of the top offensive tackles in general. He has that talent. You know, when he was a 2nd-round pick, out of Pitt a couple years ago. We all knew of his athleticism and his talent. And he's tapped into that, and he's looked great. And he's going to be an anchor on that Vikings offensive line for years to come.
If I had to pick a standout, it has to be Holton Hill. I've been talking about this guy this entire offseason. He came into camp saying, hey, he came into camp with a different mentality, knowing that he was going to compete for a starting job. Like I said last week, day one of the first day of pads, of one-on-ones, he had an interception. And that was one thing that really stood out to a lot of coaches. We've seen him running with the ones a lot. He's got some reps with the twos. He's just a guy that's ready to just come in here, make a play, and just make a big impact on this team. We know there's a huge void to be filled this offseason with the departure of, those 3 starting corners from this past year. But Holton Hill has taken it upon himself to really come out here and make the most out of his opportunity. I'm not sure if it's the hair that he cut that really, made him play with extra confidence, but you see that confidence. You see him, smiling a lot more. You see him right here just enjoying what he's doing. And going up against guys like Justin Jefferson, like right here, you know that you're going to get a really good look from Holton Hill, and that's all you can ask. So heading into week 1, somebody knowing the playbook already, somebody knowing what to do, I think that's key heading into week 1. But we can't end this show without giving the top 5 plays from training camp. We talked about our camp standouts, but now we talk about the top 5 plays. So we'll start with play number 5 right here. Got to go with the Energizer Bunny, Mr. Eric Kendricks. Kirk doing what he does best, play action fake, and then the Energizer Bunny just getting in there with a pass breakup.
Eric Kendricks is doing what he does, and we saw that last year. He tied for the league lead among linebackers with 12 pass breakups. He gets one right here on Kyle Rudolph. We saw that especially in Dallas last year at the end of that fourth quarter on Ezekiel Elliott. He really made that game-changing play. So there's Kendricks just making plays.
And then number 4, you got the rookie climbing the ladder, Justin Jefferson. I think this play went viral on Instagram. This was not the catch, but it's the gritty at the end. Justin Jefferson is going to be dependent on a lot this year and the energy he brings us.
Yeah, we love the gritty, and that's actually good coverage by Mike Hughes. He's right there. It's a good throw from Kirk and a great catch from Justin Jefferson.
We always say a perfect ball and a perfect route beats perfect coverage every single time, and you see it right here with Adam Thielen, the one-handed catch on the sideline. Kirk Cousins, this was just a perfect ball. You see Holton Hill, just perfect coverage, but the Pro Bowler.
Watch Holton right here at the end of this play. They get up, and Holton gives them a tap like, hey, that's a great catch. Holton's in good coverage right there. But just look how Thielen taps the ball to himself, right, corrals it. He's a veteran. He's played plenty of games in U.S. Bank Stadium. He knows how to make plays.
He looks like he knows what he's doing there, man. He looks like a Pro Bowler. But moving on to play number 2, Tyler CONKLIN with the walk-off touchdown to end practice with the acrobatic catch. He's a guy that stepped up highly this offseason.
Yeah, he's going to play a big role this year as that number 3 tight end. And the Vikings, as we've talked about, are going to rely on their tight ends a lot. This was probably the best offensive play of camp. See CONKLIN reach up there. Troy dives right on him, like we said. And the celebration, too, the whole team mobbing him at the end of practice. It was just a great moment.
Energy, man. I'm so big on energy, and why not leave with the most energetic play by the rookie, Cameron Dantzler? This play right here was a phenomenal play, and it's just a testament of what Cameron Dantzler did in training camp.
This is the play where we all knew Cameron Dantzler was probably the real deal. The day before, he had that pass breakup on Adam Thielen down the sideline, and to follow it up the next day with an interception on Kirk Cousins, that's when people's heads were turned, and they're like, okay, a third-round guy, but he's got first-round talent.
Nice, man. Well, training camp is over. Make sure you guys stay tuned to Vikings.com. We got the roster breakdown. Eric's writing an article. We have immediate reactions from Ben Lieber, Ron Johnson, and Pete Bursich. So we have a lot coming to you guys here soon. But that concludes the show, and that concludes the 2020 Vikings training camp. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in each day to the show. Eric, this was a lot of fun, man.
I had a great time.
For sure. Make sure you guys stay tuned to Vikings.com for the most up-to-date coverage of the team. For Eric Smith, the entire Vikings Entertainment Network, I'm Gabe Henderson. Skol.